Okay, back at it again with the white vans. We are still reviewing the Nintendo Switch 2 console. Last episode we talked about the main launch game that many people are getting packed in with the console, unless you're crazy like me and you want to have a copy on your shelf, so you paid an extra $30. Mario Kart World. Great game, not entirely flawless, but for many it will be a possible system seller. But of course, we've spent 2 episodes breaking down the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, but the next most important thing to talk about would be the hardware accessories. And you might say accessories doesn't sound very interesting, but that includes the Joycons. We're going to go full deep dive into the Joycons, into the tech, and into scandal, Joycon Drift potentially raising its filthy head already in the system's life. This is something that I was very worried about, and considering the price of a new pair of Joycon 2s, Joycon Drift, this could be make or break for Nintendo, really. I really hope that things aren't as bad as they initially appear, because I genuinely do like the Nintendo Switch 2. There's been a lot of negativity, but obviously I want it to succeed. I wouldn't have started this podcast if I didn't want it to succeed. I'm hyped for the system. We're going to do a full hardware review on the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons. We got other accessories, and I'm not going to clickbait you. We're going to get straight in, and the Joy-Cons are going to be the very first thing that we review. But they aren't, by any standards, the only thing interesting that we've got to talk about. We've got Joy-Con accessories like the charging grip, the Joycon strap, the wheel. We've got console accessories like the spare dock, the various webcams, including that gorgeous Piranha Plant design from Hori, the licensed memory cards from Samsung and SanDisk, the various options for the official case, including one official case that costs $85 freaking dollars. How can a case be possibly worth that? More excitingly, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switch Online Gamecube controller. I am chomping at the bit for that one. And stick with us through all of those accessories, because the last thing we're going to talk about is the Pro controller. And trust me, you do not want to miss that, because I think I've uncovered some stuff that nobody is talking about. You might think Pro controller, obviously, it's a no-brainer. That's what I thought. But frankly, this is the hidden scandal, and maybe you shouldn't buy it, but we've got some alternatives which are cheaper and better, in parentheses. Well, that remains to be seen. But yeah, the Pro controller, not as slam dunk as you might initially think. So let's get right into it. I promised you we'd cover the Joy-Cons first. I know that's what most people are going to care about, so we're going to jump straight into that right after I just quickly read the introduction. Hi everyone, welcome to Daily Switch 2, a podcast covering everything related to the Nintendo Switch 2, with at least one new episode uploaded per day to YouTube, Spotify, and your favorite major platforms. My name is Sam, and I've been a gamer since the 1980s. I've worked in the entertainment industry since I was a teenager, including as a games journalist, producer of gaming documentaries and shows, and I'm even programming multiple indie video games, including 4, which will be released on the Switch and hopefully Switch 2, so be sure to subscribe and follow the show for the world-exclusive news on those as they drop. However, I'm a gamer and Nintendo fan at heart, and this podcast is purely a passion project for me to talk about the stuff that interests and excites me about this new system. It's not monetized or funded by any entity. It's completely unofficial and unbiased, so that I can give my full, frank, honest opinions. So if you want to support me or just find out the best places to get these free daily episodes, all links are in the bio and at linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thank you so much. And back to the episode. Just quick housekeeping that I thought about this while reading the episode introduction there. I say every day. Now, if you're on YouTube, yeah, absolutely, you've seen many videos from me in the days following the release of the system. If you're on Spotify, you might be thinking, hang on, it's been a couple of days without an episode. Yeah, that's because I'm getting used to the system of how long it's taking my PC to render and upload all these videos every day, and it wasn't possible for me to do both at once. But don't worry, on Spotify you haven't missed out on anything at all, and we're actually going to catch up with 2 episodes releasing today. But if you're on YouTube, you didn't notice anything because we've been having absolutely daily uploads because we've been breaking down the bigger episodes into bite-sized clips and shorts to hopefully catch the algorithm a bit. But if you're listening to this full episode, I value you. Thank you so much for actually sticking with me and listening to a full-length episode. Did you discover the episode through one of those short, kind of nice clickbaity clips? If so, let me know, because I want to know if the tactic is working. But right, I promised I'd get straight into the Joycons, and we're going to get straight into the Joycons. So, Joycons. I talked about my first impressions of the Joycons in a previous episode where we were unboxing the system, taking them out, holding them in our hands for the first time, and how they are attached and everything like that. But just to briefly catch you up on my first impression opinions, I definitely prefer these Joycon 2s to the Switch 1 Joycons. They're larger and therefore more comfortable. The sticks are a significant improvement, although drift ? We'll get onto that in a minute. The buttons much better. They're bigger and clickier, and the attachment method with the magnets where it attaches to the system, so much better, so much more convincing than the kind of slidey in, never stayed quite still when you wanted it to flex a bit rail system of the Switch 1. Yeah, the magnet system, much better. When the Switch is together in portable mode with the Joy-Cons attached on either side, it feels like a solid unit. Although, as I mentioned before, I would warn against holding it by just one Joy-Con. For example, I mentioned an example of if someone came into the room while you were playing and they offered you a beer or a slice of pizza or whatever, and you were holding it in 2 hands and you let go with your right hand to grab the beer. Be pretty careful, because if you're at the wrong angle, because it's such a convincing effect that you might forget that the Joy-Cons are actually detachable, and while the magnets are strong, you don't want to be waving it around by just one Joy-Con. That said, though, it's still much better than the rail system before, and the Joy-Cons themselves more comfortable. I've never really been the biggest fan of Joy-Cons. I mentioned this in another episode, but frankly, I dislike the feel of the Joycon 1 so much that I actually bought a Switch Lite to use in portable mode, and I only use my Switch 1 in docked mode. Even the improved screen of the Switch OLED could not make me move from my Switch Lite because, again, the Switch Lite obviously doesn't have Joy-Cons because it doesn't do the switching. It's a Switch with no switch, which is strange. But because of that, it's one solid unit. It's all together. And it just, to me, it feels better in the hand. It doesn't flex. It doesn't have that kind of looseness, random things MacGyvered on the side of a generic tablet that I felt the Switch 1 design had. I'm sure many of you love the Switch 1 design and are getting angry at me for saying that. I'm sorry, I'm not a fanboy, huge lifelong fan of Nintendo, but if there's something that I don't like, as I mentioned in the introduction, this is not an official Nintendo podcast where we say everything about Nintendo is good. But again, I'm pointing out a negative with the Switch 1 and saying it's much better with the Switch 2. But with the Joy-Cons in general, With the Switch one, as I said, I didn't really like the feel of the Joy-Cons. I didn't like how they attached, and I really wasn't a fan of using them separate and sideways. You know, like when they say, oh, you can turn the left and right Joy-Cons into two controllers, so you can have multiplayer without carrying a separate Yeah, you can, in theory, but for me, it's extremely uncomfortable, and especially the right Joy-Con, the stick ends up being in the middle of the controller when you hold it sideways. It's just weird. That issue still exists with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. However, I will say, because they're bigger, because the buttons are bigger, because the sticks are bigger, and also because they really improved what are the shoulder buttons in inverted commas when you put the Joy-Cons sideways. I can see me potentially being more willing to use them like that and not cringing quite as much if somebody passes me one and expects me to use it. But still, I can see myself kind of jumping towards a Pro Controller or another option. But as I said, we'll get into the Pro Controller later because it's not quite as simple as that. The rails that attach, or the strap that attach, I said before that I never really saw the point in these because it's two extra bits of plastic that you have to kind of carry around with you, and it takes away from the neat, oh, it's an all-in-one unit, and then you can take the controllers off if you want to. Yeah, well, it's not an all-in-one unit if you've got to then carry these little fiddly straps around, and I said it's quite likely that you're going to lose them or you're going to forget to bring them with you. That's still a problem here. However, because of the Joy-Con 2 mouse mode, maybe they're more essential than they were before. I mean, not essential, but more useful, because I can imagine in mouse mode, maybe the Joy-Con aren't going to be as comfortable, or maybe they're going to grip a bit to whatever you're using the mouse in inverted commas on. Mouse mode is something that I'm not really going to get into here because I haven't personally played any games that require mouse mode yet. I will say it's a neat idea. It definitely opens up some cool gameplay ideas. Initially, I was just like, oh, okay, we're just going to get more PC ports, and I don't really care about that because I'm a PC gamer as well as a Nintendo gamer anyway. So if there was something that required a mouse, I'll just play it on my PC or my laptop. But then I saw the game with the wheelchair basketball and using kind of two mice at once and combining the motion control with the mouse movement, and I thought, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, there could be some fun implementations of this mouse mode. It's probably going to be gimmicky, and like most Nintendo gimmicks, it's probably going to be underused, just as the gamepad was. I mean, I'm thinking specifically of how long it took for Star Fox Zero to come out, and then when it did, it didn't really work as a proof of concept for what Miyamoto was envisioning in the first place with the gamepad. But also things like the Wiimote. Over time, it just wasn't used very much, was it? It was used less and less. Same with the 3D of the 3DS. I mean, by the end of the 3DS's life, even first-party Nintendo games were being released without bothering to have a 3D mode in them. Often these kind of gimmicks end up being just that. It remains to be seen whether there is an essential mouse mode game that comes out, but I'm definitely open to it. I think it's a cool idea. And the rails, while I still think they're an awkward solution very much in inverted commas, they are better than the rails on the Joycon 1, and certainly the shoulder buttons are more comfortable and bigger and better placed, and especially once you put the rails on. And I like the fact that the rails add a bit of colour and match to the coloured ring around the analog stick. And I guess I should mention, again, I mentioned this in my first impressions, but I do think it's a bit classier the way that the Joycon 2s come in the kind of matching grey, dark grey, black, whatever, to match the body, but you get the splash of unmatched colour of the Joycon 1s with the rings around the analog stick, the kind of blue and red in their Nintendo classic style. For me, it might be a little less cool to some people, but for me it gives a kind of classier look, and also you don't have that sense of you're staring at the screen when you're in portable mode and you have a kind of weird imbalance where the left and the right colors don't match. That always kind of bothered me, having that in my periphery vision, so that's fixed now. I'm sure we will get different color Joycon 2 variations over time, but I hope that when we do, I hope that they release them in matching colors, not unmatching like with the color variations for the Switch 1, because I've got to say that actually did put me off buying color variations of the Joycon for the Switch 1. Obviously, or at least you'd hope, obviously, the Joycon 2 have pretty much all the functionality of the Joycon 1. I suppose the only thing is, because they're a different size, they won't fit into Joycon 1 accessories, like the wheel, if anybody uses the wheel. We'll get onto that. A zapper and, things like... what was it? The cardboard stuff. Nintendo LABO. Yeah, that was a cool idea that then kind of instantly disappeared, didn't it? Yeah, it's a shame. The Joycon 2s won't work with Nintendo LABO if you're one of the tiny fraction of people that still care about Nintendo LABO nowadays. But one area that has been supposedly upgraded is the rumble features, or the what do people call it nowadays? The haptics. Is that the word that techie people use? Haptics. What was called HD Rumble with the Switch, kind of gimmicky name, but with the Switch, HD Rumble. And I guess if it's improved, maybe now it's 4K Rumble or HDR Rumble. AI enhanced Rumble, whatever the current buzzwords are. Look, I don't really care about Rumble. I was there at the start of Rumble. I bought Lilac Wars, which, for those who don't know, is the European name for Star Fox 64, and it came with the very first Rumble pack for the Nintendo 64, and I remember reading in all the magazines about how amazing it was, and I was not impressed. I was impressed with the game. I loved the game, but I just thought, okay, so sometimes my controller vibrates. I don't really see how this is immersive, but I know that some people like it. I've got to say it became slightly more interesting over time with what Sony implemented with DualShock. A lot of people don't know, but if you were there at the time, you might remember there was a dual analog controller for the PlayStation 1 before the DualShock, just very, very briefly. So it had dual analog sticks and slightly longer handles, but no rumble functionality or no force feedback. Not that it's proper force feedback anyway, because force feedback would actually wrestle with the stick while you were playing it rather than just vibrating in your hand. But by adding two motors, you could do some slightly cooler stuff. And of course, nowadays Nintendo and Xbox, everybody is caught up, and it slightly iteratively improves each generation. And Nintendo made a big deal with the Switch 1 of HD Rumble, supposedly being able to recreate crazy mind tricks to make you feel like you're holding a ball in a cup, or I'm laughing because even at the time, watching those initial trailers for 1-2 Switch, I was thinking this doesn't look fun, and this looks like a weird tech demo, and I hope it's free. And then they ended up charging full price for it, and at the time I thought full price for 1-2 Switch was an absolute scandal. For me, it should have been free included with the Switch one, and I'm laughing to myself now because that was nothing compared to the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, and I am not paying money for Welcome Tour. I'm sorry. We will talk about it in another video very briefly because I'm going to be covering the entire launch lineup, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy it just to feel the supposedly improved HD rumble and have an interactive manual. I'm not going to encourage that. Sure, it's not expensive. I think it's like $10, but that's beside the point. It should have been free. If Sony can include Astro's frickin' Playroom for free, which is an incredible game. I mean, it's short, but it's almost a system seller by itself, isn't it? What are Nintendo doing? Nickel and diming for the Welcome Tour. But we're meant to be talking about the Joy-Cons, but as I say, really the only thing that would have probably fully shown off exactly how supposedly incredible this new Rumble feature would be the Welcome Tour, I imagine. But again, just like with 1-2 Switch and the Switch 1, the most impressive use of HD Rumble was probably 1-2 Switch, and it was a tech demo, and then it was never really used in games. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, if there were games that you feel were massively enhanced by HD Rumble, more so than just vibrating a little bit, when you're speeding up in a car or when you get shot, more so that would have not been possible on previous implementations of Rumble. I don't know. I'm interested. I genuinely am interested if some people think HD Rumble is the reason to buy a Switch, and therefore the new version will be the reason to buy Switch 2. For me, it's not important, but it's nice to have. And I'm told that it's an improvement, so I'm going to take their word for it. Now, here is the big one. Obviously, the main problem with the Joy-Cons on the Nintendo Switch 1, and the main problems with the Nintendo Switch 1 in general, were the Joy-Cons drifting. It's the big scandal. I say scandal because if you follow the news, I mean, Nintendo didn't even admit officially that it was a problem, because if they'd have officially admitted it was a problem, they would have been hit with even bigger lawsuits than they already had. But they did settle a lot of lawsuits out of court, and they did implement a system whereby when your Joy-Cons inevitably drifted, they would get replaced. Obviously, for me as a collector, I've mentioned that I'm a collector who likes to still play systems from many, many, many years ago. I'm still playing NES and Super Nintendo, and I worry about that with the Joy-Cons of, when they eventually break. In the future, we won't be able to replace them, will we? But hopefully the community will save the day, as they always seem to, and will invent, drop-in replacements, as they have done for N64 controller sticks. Well done, community. But if you've been living under a rock and somehow you don't know what is Joy-Con Drift, stick drift in general is something which most modern controllers will suffer from. Basically, it means where the analog sticks no longer stay centered as far as the system is concerned, and even when you're not touching the analog sticks, the system thinks that you're pressing in a certain direction. And of course, the worse that gets, the more impossible it becomes to play the game, because you're always veering off in a direction that you're not pressing, or you're wrestling with it. If, say, your stick is drifting left and you want to turn right, you'll have to really hold it to the right, and if you want to go straight, you'll have to hold it kind of halfway to the right. Does that make sense? Stick drift is an absolute nightmare. It's something which can happen with PlayStation and Xbox controls, but honestly, it's pretty rare. Whereas with the Joy-Cons on the Nintendo Switch 1, it started happening more and more and more often, to the point that it became a bit of an epidemic. And it seems almost everybody who had a launch model Nintendo Switch 1 or a model that came out really in the first maybe 2 years of the system, pretty much they had to replace their Joy-Cons. And I know many people who've had to buy multiple pairs of Joy-Cons for their children. For me personally, as I said, I don't really like the Joy-Cons, so I didn't use them very much. So I only ever had one pair that went a bit squiff, but I didn't really care, and I just didn't replace them after that point, because, as I say, I use my Switch 1 in docked mode, and I use the Switch Lite for handheld play, and touch wood, touche en bois, as my French friends say, my Switch Lite has not drifted, although the technology for the sticks is it works in the same way as within the Joy-Cons, so maybe it will. But I think, thankfully, from this moment on, I'll be using my Switch 2 for portable play instead of my Switch Lite. So my Switch Lite can happily retire knowing that it never drifted. So this is wonderful. But yeah, Joycon Drift was a big issue for the Nintendo Switch 1 and a big scandal for Nintendo. Because, I mean, Joy-Cons are not cheap. And we'll get into that with the Joy-Cons too, because they're even less cheap. This will be a recurring theme in this video with all the accessories. But I don't want to dwell on costs, but if you're releasing a good product that will last, okay, maybe it's worth the price, but you know, when you're releasing a premium product, for me, the Switch Joy-Cons were always overpriced, especially considering how breakable they were, and they almost seemed to come with an expiry date, although they did improve over time, and we'll get to that. But at the price, it really made it an issue. They weren't. These should not be disposable items or items that you're expecting to regularly replace. These should be, you buy your system, they're an integral part of the system, and unless you're really rough with them, you shouldn't be expecting to have to regularly replace them, and certainly not at the cost. Not at the cost that they are. But that was the problem with the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons, they're probably gonna have the same problem, question mark, in parentheses, inverted commas, maybe. Because people have done teardowns on these Joycon 2s already, and we can see that the technology of how these sticks work, the mechanism for how it registers the analog inputs, is basically the same as the Nintendo Switch 1 Joy-Cons. But I will say, the problem with the sticks on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons did improve over time. As the new models came out, Nintendo implemented small changes without ever officially mentioning that they'd made the changes, because that would be admitting that there was a fault with the original design, and that would open them up to even more lawsuits. But the design did change very slightly over time, and seemingly the manufacturing process, maybe they cared a little bit more, and they put a bit more effort into making sure that they were extremely strong, because people who bought later models of the Switch 1, I think starting with the Mario Red bundle, and certainly by the time we got to the OLED models, the Joy-Cons, although Nintendo will tell you, oh no, they're identical, we didn't change anything, seemingly, anecdotally, the Joy-Cons became better quality. And didn't break as often. So hopefully that continues with the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. The Switch 2 Joy-Cons, they do still have the same technology, so they are fallible to the same stick drifting potentially, but hopefully they've managed to learn from the lessons that they did with the Switch 1 Joy-Cons, and although they can't possibly have fixed it completely, hopefully the situation will be a lot better. Here's the disappointing thing: they could have fixed the problem completely, right? We have fixed this. In fact, again, not to get into console wars territory, but Sega fixed this back with the Dreamcast in 1999. 26 years ago. The analog stick on the Sega Dreamcast used Hall effect sensors. Hall effect analog sticks are included in pretty much every premium version of a modern controller, including the premium versions of the Xbox and PlayStation 5 controllers. Admittedly, those are very expensive controllers, but I believe they come with Hall effects. And it's just a different technology of how you read the analog inputs, and it should have been included with the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons to make sure that they can never drift. They can never possibly drift. Hall effect sticks can't possibly drift because of how they work. And if I'm wrong with that, let me know in the comments. But I believe because of the way they work, they can't drift. And why didn't Nintendo include that? Maybe as a cost-cutting measure? If it was as a cost-cutting measure, then cynical face on, like the way when I was talking about the Joycon grip and the dock. They really kind of cheaped out with certain aspects, and if they also cheaped out with the analog sticks on the Joy-Con 2, then obviously I don't approve of that. But it could be, to be fair to Nintendo, it could be that Hall effect analog sticks would not work with the magnetic attachment ? It's certainly possible that because of the way that Hall effect sticks work, strong magnets nearby would affect the electronics. So it's possible that Hall effect sticks wouldn't have been possible because of the magnetic attachment. But I would argue if that's the case, if I was Nintendo, I would have prioritized the Hall effect sticks and I would have not used magnets. I would have used another attaching mechanism. I would have still kept the really nice kind of snug method of how the rather than sliding on with a rail, they actually clip into the side of the tablet. I would have still kept that, but rather than using a magnet to hold them in place, I would have maybe had an actual physical clip. And frankly, as long as it was smooth enough and they didn't rattle around, I would have actually preferred that, because then you wouldn't have the problem that I mentioned of if somebody comes in and offers you a pizza or offers you a beer, they could fly out of your hands. But Nintendo didn't go with that method, and they didn't go with Hall effect sticks, so therefore we might eventually see drift rearing its ugly head. Now, you may have seen online people claiming already that they are experiencing stick drift with the Joycon 2, with the Switch 2. Oh my god, I've just bought a brand new Switch 2 and it's come with drifting sticks out of the box. I am skeptical about that. I don't know. It's possible. But if you wanted to clickbait and get many hits and many views, this is something that people are really worried about, really paranoid about. So it would be very, very easy to lie and say that you have stick drift on your Nintendo Switch 2 and get a whole load of clickbaity clicks. And, go ahead, do your thing. I've been clickbaiting with some of my clips and shorts. You have to game the algorithm any way you can. But don't lie. Don't actively lie to make Nintendo look worse than they already are. There's plenty to moan about legitimately with the Switch 2 and Mario Kart World, and there's plenty of things that you can legitimately moan about without making up problems. But there has been a large amount of people saying that they are experiencing drift, and I think they're doing it in good faith because they think that they are. They think they're genuinely experiencing drift. And here's the thing. This is important. You may experience this yourself. Most people buying the Nintendo Switch 2 on launch will be buying it with Mario Kart. In fact, probably only with Mario Kart. I imagine for many people, especially because of the cost, they will only buy the bundle with Mario Kart, and for a long while that'll be the only game that they have. And many people playing Mario Kart are feeling like they're experiencing stick drift because they're not touching the stick and they are veering off to the left or veering off to the right. Here's the thing. Many people experiencing this, it's not because they're experiencing stick drift, it's because they have tilt controls turned on. There is a gyro sensor in the Joy-Cons, and you can control Mario Kart using tilt controls, like with the Wii, where you could put it in a wheel, and you put the Wiimote in a wheel, and you tilt it side to side. That feature is included in Mario Kart World. Crazy as many people may think, I think the majority of people would assume that those kind of controls died out with the Wii more than 10 years ago. Way more than 10 years ago. But no, it was popular enough that Nintendo still supports motion tilt controls, and they're even releasing a brand new wheel accessory for the Joy-Con 2, and we'll get into that in a minute. And I mean, I think it's silly, but it exists if you want it as an option, and I'm sure some people do, and I don't want to remove accessibility. If it's your jam, if you like using the wheel controller, great, go for it. But it has caused a huge problem with people knocking on the tilt controls or not realizing that they've got tilt controls turned on and thinking that their sticks are drifting. And so there's been literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people on social media going, oh my god, I've just bought a Switch 2 and it was really expensive and it's drifting already. What am I going to do? Crying face emoji, crying face emoji. No. Check to see whether you've got tilt controls turned on in Mario Kart. And, are your sticks drifting when you're not playing Mario Kart? Probably not. You've probably just got the tilt controls turned on. Turn them off. Public service announcement. But again, the way I just said that, I don't want to sound judgmental. No, this is a very, very easy mistake to make. And it's entirely Nintendo's fault for not making it obvious that you have tilt controls on. But also, people wouldn't be so paranoid and instantly panicking and flying off the handle when they experience what they believe to be drift if it weren't for Joycon Drift being such a huge problem with Switch 1 and Nintendo being so rubbish and cagey about dealing with the issue, and also without them refusing to include Hall effect with the Joycon 2. So, is stick drift a big problem immediately right now? I don't believe so. I mean, if you are genuinely experiencing stick drift, let me know in the comments, because that is a major problem. But I think a lot of the people claiming that they're having stick drift are just either clickbaiting or they're making a mistake, and they're understandably mistaking weird tilt controls for drifting. But will it be a problem in the future? Almost certainly, yes. I hate to say that. I really hate to say that, because as I said in my first impressions video, I actually really like the Joycon 2s. I think they're a massive improvement over the Joycon 1, but they aren't perfect. I mean, they aren't perfect because they've got this technology which is prone to drifting over time. And, with any system, you could say, okay, controllers are a replaceable thing. right? I remember my very first console was a Sega Master System, and I loved that thing, and I played it so much that eventually the D-pad started to get unresponsive, and one of the buttons started getting a little bit sticky, because I just played it so much. I played it for hundreds of hours. And fair enough. So I went out and just bought another controller. And back then, I remember the controller, it cost me $9.99. And as a kid with my pocket money, I felt slightly annoyed that I wasn't using that money to buy a new game and I had to buy a new controller instead. But you know what? It was a sacrifice I was willing to make because I was aware, fair dues, I've used this controller for thousands of hours and I've hit these buttons thousands of times. I've got to say, though, with a portable system, not so much. Because obviously, I mean, I'm thinking about, when you think about portable systems, obviously you think about Nintendo first, with all of the Game Boy line and the DS's and everything. But also, even with the PSP and the PSP Vita and the Sega Game Gear, the Atari Lynx, the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I'm just trying to think of every handheld console I've ever had. Even the Supervisions. I briefly mentioned Supervisions in an earlier episode. Most people won't know what they are. Supervisions were a DMG Game Boy ripoff from Taiwan at a budget price. They were low-quality ripoffs of the DMG. However, ironically, in some ways, they predicted the Nintendo Switch because they had features of the eventual Nintendo Switch, because you could get a dock for the Supervision, or for one model of the Supervision, so it would plug into the TV. And also with another model of the Supervision, because there were three models of it in all. With another model of the Supervision, it actually had the D-pad that the Joycons now have, with D-pad very much in inverted commas, where it uses 4 small circular buttons instead of a traditional cross. That actually was pioneered, in inverted commas. I mean, I hate it, but it was pioneered, in inverted commas, by the Supervision, which is funny because the Supervision in itself was a Nintendo ripoff. But anyway, the reason why I mention that is even the Supervision, which was a budget system from Taiwan in the 90s, even that, and all of my models of the Game Boy and every other handheld console I've never had the controls break, because the controls are an integral part of the system. So it's important that they are super high quality, because they can't be easily replaced. You basically, if your controls break, you have to buy a new system. Now, with the Switch, if the controls break, you don't have to buy a new system, you just buy new Joy-Cons. But Nintendo keeps insisting that the Switch and the Switch 2 are not portable systems. They are full-fat home consoles that just happen to also be portable in one of the 3 modes that you can use them in. I've already made clear that I think that that's a cop-out. The Switch is a portable system which happens to just also be playable in tabletop mode and on a TV in docked. It's not a home console first, because if it was, they would be competing closer on technology with the Xbox and the PlayStation range. It's not. It's portable tech. It's using mobile phone and tablet tech. So why aren't the built-in controls, built-in in inverted commas, why aren't the included default controls as high quality as on previous Nintendo systems? Is it planned obsolescence? Is it so that Nintendo can sell you more Joy-Cons down the line? That's a very cynical way to look at it. But frankly, some of the decisions that Nintendo has made leads us to being cynical. Like the aforementioned welcome tour being charged for, and the prices of some of these accessories. I don't know. So when we're talking about the cost to replace them, $95. $95. I've got to take a pause there. $95. That is twice what I paid for my DMG Game Boy back in the 90s. I know we've got, inflation, but actually that means that with inflation included, the DMG should have been more expensive, not less. Jesus, $95 for a pair of Joycon, and I'm putting pair in inverted commas because pair makes it sound like it's two controllers. Yes, technically it's two controllers if you turn them on the side, but you can't control every game like that, and that's not how the majority of people are going to play the Switch. The majority of the time they're going to use it portable with both Joy-Cons attached, so it's just essentially it controls for one player, not two, despite what Nintendo wants to say. So it's $95 for your controls. Now, I know they're included when you buy the system. Absolutely. Of course. But for multiplayer, people are going to want to maybe buy more? Question mark. I actually think there's better options, but I think there's a lot of people that just by default, a lot of parents who are going to think, well, I've got more than one kid. They want to play multiplayer. They want to have their friends around. I'm going to have to buy more Joy-Cons. And they don't realize that the other options exist. $95. When they were announced, they were announced at 90, and I already thought that 90 was extortionate. But then, almost immediately after, I think 2 days after releasing the price, they started talking about, the tariffs with the American political system. The tariffs mean that we have to raise the price of everything. And, let's not get into the political side of things, but personally, I think they used it as an excuse to raise the price of things that they didn't need to raise the price of. Yes, maybe the price of the console itself needed to go up, and charitably, maybe the Joy-Cons themselves, because they have certain technology in them which comes from various different countries, including India for manufacturing and Taiwan or China or both. If you live in China and you're offended that I just separated Taiwan and China, I'm sorry. Hashtag not a political podcast. But $95 for a pair of Joy-Con. I'm sorry. Oh, but now they have a C button. Totally worth it. We've got a C button included. That is a feature that totally makes it worth paying the extra. I'm joking because, as I think I've made clear previously, I don't use online functions really, especially I'm not going to be using social media and sharing, and I'm not really interested in the webcam. We'll get onto that later. So the chat functions are essentially useless for me, so I'm not going to use the C button. And I hate the fact that it's called a C button. Why couldn't it just have like a logo that looks like a little face or something for chatting, or I don't know, or I hate the fact that it's called the C button because Nintendo had already established C buttons way back in the Nintendo 64. The C buttons were the camera buttons, the little yellow buttons for controlling the camera, what essentially later on became the analog stick. And then you had the C stick on the Nintendo Gamecube. See, it all made sense and it was following. And then suddenly Nintendo in their infinite wisdom wants to change the definition of what the C stands for. No, I'm not buying it, Nintendo. This is not a C button. It's a social media button and I don't like it. Old man yelling at clouds, just like the last episode. But okay, Joy-Cons, $95 a pair. They're probably going to drift eventually, but at least you get them with the console in the first place. So hopefully, if you're just buying it yourself, you're wanting to play single player or for multiplayer, you can use other options. $40. You don't have to worry about the cost. But eventually, when you have to replace them or when you want to buy more, the cost is pretty extortionate, isn't it? To go... I mean, I know it was many, many years ago, but $10 for a new controller back when I first started gaming, it felt expensive back then, but I was happy to pay it because it felt like value for money. $95. I don't feel there's $95 worth of tech inside these Joy-Cons. It's essentially... Look, if you think I'm wrong, Go on AliExpress right now and search for mobile phone parts, including IR sensors, gyro controls. There's a few pence worth of tech inside these Joy-Cons. Charitably, it costs Nintendo, including labor, $10 to make a pair, and then maybe $5 for the packaging and a combined cost for shipping to retailers. They are making a huge markup on these $95 Joy-Cons. Do not get it twisted. Now, some people will say, but Sam, you can put them in the Joy-Con grip and they double up as a Pro controller. So you don't need to buy a Pro controller because you can just put them in the grip. And I've talked about this in my first impressions video. The grip, it's okay, but it should have been a charging grip. For the premium price and the fact that supposedly this system is an improvement over the last system, it should have been a charging grip. And okay, this is an accessories video. Let's talk about it. You can buy a charging grip. So Nintendo obviously had the idea, knows that charging grips are a thing, knows that people might want them, knows that a charging grip would be better. But no, why would we include that with the system when you buy it? No, we're going to charge $40 for a charging grip. $40. When, as I said in my first impressions video, if you want to modify your grip yourself with a Dremel and buying parts online, it will probably cost you $2. $2 to upgrade your grip to a charging grip. $40. The charging grip is better than the standard grip. But please don't encourage them. Please don't encourage them. Use another solution. And use a Pro controller instead. But maybe not the Switch 2 Pro controller. And we're going to get into that. It's not the slam dunk that you might think. We'll get into that later in the video.
But before that, we've just got some quick housekeeping of having to get through some of the other official Nintendo accessories that are available to buy right now for your hard-earned cash. And are any of them essential or actually worth the money? Well, I know that many of these are not going to be interesting to many of you, especially at the prices that they're charging. So we're going to rush through these as quickly as possible. I promise I'm not going to waste time just for advertising clicks or something like that. As I said, I'm not even monetized, so there would be no reason for me to do that. But I do feel that for completion's sake and to be as fair to Nintendo as possible, I should mention everything that's on the market. So just quickly, we've already talked about the Joycon Strap. Now, I keep calling them Joycon Rails. I know that's not the proper official term for them, and it's probably not the best term for them anyway. Rails is more how they connect. I don't know why I keep saying Rails. But when I do, I'm referring to the Joycon Strap. The reason why I think Joycon Strap is a stupid name, by the way, is to me the strap is the fabric thing that goes around your wrist to stop you accidentally throwing the Joy-Cons or your Wii remote or whatever at the television. But when Nintendo says Joycon Strap, they mean the plastic things that are attached to the fabric strap. And we've already talked about them briefly, so I won't repeat myself too much. They're just bits of plastic that you are supposed to attach to the Joy-Cons when you want to use the Joy-Cons when you're holding them separately and when you're using them on their side. As I said before, I don't think this is a mode which I'm going to use often, and I imagine that most people won't want to use it often if they have other options. It's better to use a full controller like a Pro controller or even the two Joy-Cons in the grip rather than separate the two Joy-Cons into two separate controllers on their side. But these straps become more useful in inverted commas when you're talking about games with mouse mode, and again it remains to be seen how many games will properly use mouse mode and how many essential games it will be essential to use mouse mode. But here's the thing, I mentioned before that they are extra little extraneous bits of plastic for you to carry around with you, and therefore they're more likely that either you won't use them at all or they'll get lost, because on the rare occasions when you do need to use them, either you'll have forgotten where you last put them, or you carried them around with you because it's a portable system, and then you left them somewhere, or you left them in your pockets of a coat or whatever, it's quite likely that you'll lose the Joycon straps, is what I'm trying to say. And never fear, if you want to buy more Joycon straps, Nintendo will absolutely sell you some more. You can go to the shops right now and buy a retail packaged version of the Joycon straps. In some ways, I feel like they should be just included with the $95 Joycons. I mean, frankly, if there isn't straps included with the $95 Joycons, that's a scandal in itself. They absolutely should be, especially at $95. I don't know. I strongly suspect that they aren't, just given the way that Nintendo is nickel and diming here, but I don't know, so I won't crucify them on that. It's nice that there's an option to buy them separately, so that whoever loses them doesn't necessarily have to buy a whole brand new set of Joy-Cons just to get the straps that they're missing. But the price for these straps is $14. Now, on the one hand, $14 seems a lot more reasonable than the $40 that I just moaned about for the charging grip. And it is $14 is easier to swallow for most people. $14, they'll just go, oh, okay, it's my fault for losing them. I'll just spend the $14. It's nice packaging, as always with Nintendo. Why you'd want to display it on your shelf, I don't quite know. But $14, it's not extortionate. But then when you think about what it actually is, it's two tiny little bits of plastic with little wrist straps, material wrist straps on there. And honestly, it's the kind of thing, it's the same amount of plastic and basically the same little material or string wrist strap that you get with little gacha prizes, or the kind of things you get inside a Kinder Egg, or, you know, it's not $14. It's not $14. It's... If they were like $3.99, I'd say, yeah, cool, brilliant, love it, perfect pricing. And Nintendo would still be making a huge markup. $14, it's literally $10 higher than they should be. But I don't think they're like so expensive that people are going to be crying about it. So well done, Nintendo, I suppose. Now we get on to more kind of overpriced, pointless plastic, which I talked about briefly, the Joycon Wheel. Again, does anybody actually still use these? I don't want to, you know, if you love playing Mario Kart with the wheel, maybe you grew up with the Wii, or maybe you were a more casual gamer, or somebody who didn't really play games, but then the Wii got you into games because of, you know, Wii Sports or Wii Fit, and, you know, having the controller in a wheel makes it seem more intuitive than using an analog stick. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to insult anybody. If you have fun playing with the wheel, great. But honestly, even if you like playing with the Joy-Cons on the side and using them like a steering wheel, using the tilt controls, does the experience significantly change by putting the Joy-Con in a hollow plastic wheel with no tech inside? No. If you really want wheel style motion controls and you really care about it, buy yourself a proper steering wheel with a heavy base, or attach it to a table or whatever, and you will have the experience that you are wanting to have. Your life will be changed. If you think that holding a Wiimote inside a hollow plastic wheel is, you know, immersive, you use a proper steering wheel, get a force feedback one, my God, your mind will be blown. But anyway, these little hollow wheels, they used to be the laughingstock of the industry. There was a time towards the end of the Wii's lifespan where you could not give these things away. Literally, game shops had bins of, this is free, take it if you want it. And it was full of all these silly little kind of hollow plastic things that you could put your Wiimote inside, like wheels, like golf clubs, like tennis rackets. People had realized even 10 years ago or more that for the majority of people, it did not make the experience of motion controls any more believable or feel any better by having these unnecessary pieces of plastic around to clip onto your controller. And the plastic doesn't do anything. Literally doesn't do anything. Doesn't have any tech inside. I don't know. Oh no, man. So the Joycon Wheel, look, if you're one of the few people who still uses them and still wants them, great. The fact that Nintendo have produced a brand new Joycon Wheel and it's, properly packaged up and available in retailers. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a large market of people who still love these and still want to use them. Maybe I'm just completely out of touch. I don't know. But what is the price? We're here to talk about the price. $25. $25 for a hollow plastic steering wheel with no tech. Doesn't do anything. It's molded plastic. At least it's not 3D printed. $25. I don't know. It's, again, if it was like $5, maybe $7.99 max, I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. For those who want it, great to have the option. Can't see it myself, but for those who want it, okay. Unlike the strap, where, $10 more than what I think would be a reasonable no-brainer price, $25 seems very, very steep to me. Especially when, maybe not for the Switch 2, but for consoles in general, you can go online and you can buy a real steering wheel controller for $25. Or for the Switch One, you can buy, you can buy third-party Pro controllers for $25, Whereas this is just a hollow plastic shell that doesn't do anything, doesn't have any tech, and Nintendo is still riding off the fact that some people enjoyed the novelty of motion controls way back in the Wii. I don't know. It just seems extremely overpriced. But if you want one, unfortunately, your Nintendo Wii wheel or your Nintendo Switch 1 wheel, it will not fit with the new Joy-Cons because the new Joy-Cons are bigger, so you'll need this wheel. Personally, I hope that somebody will have, maybe somebody has already, I don't know, but personally I hope that somebody will make a pattern for 3D printing wheels, and probably, knowing the community, manage to make it nicer or have cooler features or whatever than the existing one, and then you can find somebody with a 3D printer and get one made up for the actual costs. And for an individual to 3D print one, it's not going to cost you more than $5. And that's for an individual. So for a company, there's no way in heck this should have been $25. But I promised I was going to be quick with the things people won't care about. So we're moving on. The dock. Okay, this is where it becomes slightly more interesting, because I can imagine people who want to buy a dock. I might even fit into that category of people who might want to buy another dock. Now, it's not like the strap where, this is something that's included in the package, but you might lose it. I think the likelihood of you losing your dock is very low, unless you're, regularly carrying it around to other people's houses in an extortionate carry case that we'll get into in a minute. Why would you want 2 docks or 3 docks or 4 docks? Well, simply so that you can have a dock plugged into more televisions in more rooms. For example, if you have kids, or if you're somebody whose lifestyle, you like to have a TV in your living room, but also a nice big TV in your bedroom, or you have a separate gaming room, like a kind of man cave or whatever. It's or person cave. I don't want to be gender specific. Girls are gamers too, and let's not get political. But you know what I mean. If you have a dedicated gaming room, or if you like to game in the bedroom, but also you just want to be able to casually just plug in your Switch into the TV in the lounge, in the living room, in the salon. Yeah, absolutely. You might want 2 docks or 3 docks or 4 docks, whatever, so that you don't have to keep unplugging the dock and carrying it around. It's more convenient to have a dock attached to every TV. I can totally see that. And that's actually something that I might want to do myself. So I've already given my opinion in the hardware review of the dock itself. I think it's fine. It's perfectly functional. In some ways, it's better than the dock for the Switch 1 and the Switch OLED. The Switch OLED dock was better than the original dock, and this is better, again, iteratively better. It does feel a little cheap and cheerful. There's ways that it could have been significantly improved, and they didn't. So I'm not 100% happy with the dock, but as it exists, it's fine. It does its job, and if you want to play the Switch on the TV, you need a dock. So when you buy the dock separately, it comes, again, in nice packaging. It comes with an AC adapter, comes with a charging cable and a USB brick. And again, as I covered in my previous review, just briefly, the USB brick charging cable, I think it comes with a HDMI cable as well. All of the accessories, like the cables and the bricks and everything like that, they are very high quality. They're not just, dollar store cheap out ones. These are kind of, if you paid $5-6 in a supermarket to get a separate cable, you'd be happy with the price. They're not like crazy, but they're certainly not cheap ones that will die as soon as you look at you. And it's nice that they're included with the dock when you buy it, because again, there have been previous Nintendo products that they've put out that absolutely require a charger or a cable, and they haven't included them. So it's nice that they're here. And the dock itself is fine. It's $120. I'm just taking a pause because I can't get my head around that. $120. If this was like $30-40, which, let's be honest, there's not much tech inside it. There's a little fan and it's not much plastic. If it was like $30-35, maybe as high as $50, just without question, I would have run out and bought 3 of them, right? But I'm not going to spend that kind of, just so I could have options and plug it in anywhere. But I'm not going to spend that kind of money just for one. Am I? I don't know. Maybe I will, because I do like the idea of, being able to have it easily plug in and plug outable in a dock and dockable in my games room versus my lounge. But man, that is a difficult price to swallow, and I think that they know that it's, again, I keep coming back to the components. The components of what's inside that dock cost $10 max, including the packaging. $120 is crazy. But I think they know that this is the one accessory that everybody, or a very large percentage of people, will want to buy, especially because Nintendo is predominantly a family company, and they're going to have a Switch, and they're going to want to have it able to be plugged into the TV in the lounge for the family to all play together. But whatever child the Switch belongs to, in inverted commas, is going to want to play it in their bedroom as well. They know that they're going to sell a ton of these things. So they can add a markup, but $120. If you take that logically, that the kind of bundle price of the Switch system altogether is like $500. $120 of that $500 is included in value in the dock. It's absolutely not. As far as technology goes, it's the screen, it's the processor, it's the GPU, it's the sticks, it's the buttons, it's charging and the battery. It's not a random bit of plastic with a fan and an HDMI out. Again, components-wise, go on AliExpress. and this will be proved because there will be third-party docks that come out, third-party docking solutions that come out for $20 to $30. Mark my words, I am 100% sure. They already exist for the Switch 1, and they existed within a month of the Switch 1 launching. There was unofficial docking solutions, which in some ways were actually better than, or more convenient than the Switch 1. So, as I said, I might very well put down the $120. Because I want to be able to dock it in more rooms. But also at this price, rather than it being a no-brainer and me automatically just buying 2 or 3 of them immediately, I'm probably going to wait and see whether there's a decent third-party solution, because I don't want to encourage that kind of price gouging. And again, I don't want to harp on about the tariffs, but with the tariff increases, they added $10 to the price. They'd planned for $110, which was already extortionate. If you want to overcharge, why not make it a nice even $99 or something like that, just to make it seem like it's less than $100. $110, that's an awkward price, but $120, and saying that you're increasing it by $10 just because of the tariffs, that's some crazy talk. And as far as I'm not even sure that there's components inside this which are manufactured in multiple countries that have tariffs added. So it seems crazy to me, especially for those not within the US. If we're in Europe, why are we paying tariffs because of what's happening in the US? I don't know. The next big accessory, which I suppose many people will want to buy, and I'm not in that camp, but many people will want to, so I'll just briefly cover it, is the Switch 2 camera. I keep calling it the webcam because that's what it is. $55 in this day and age for a 1080p webcam. It's walk into any big electronics supplier or even a lot of cheap stores. For example, I could just literally walk out of my house right now and walk for 10 minutes and I could find 2 or 3 stores which have a webcam, a 1080p USB webcam from a decent, well-known manufacturer for $10 to $15. Okay, this one's slightly nicer. It's as far as the form factor, it's on. It's got a little stand. Most of the cheap ones they clip onto laptops and things like this. So, no, this one has a proper little stand, and okay, but the tech inside, it's a 1080p webcam. It's not an incredibly impressive webcam, and that 1080p, I assume, can go up to 60 hertz. But we've seen from all of the Nintendo Online tech demos, it doesn't update at 60 frames a second. It doesn't even update at 15 frames a second the majority of the time. But I assume the tech behind it is 1080p 60, which is pretty standard nowadays for even cheap webcams. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. But 55. In people's heads, Nintendo branded and Nintendo designed stuff is going to be more expensive. So 55 sounds at the top end of what's reasonable, but it sounds potentially reasonable. But let's be honest, let's look at it. It's barely Nintendo branded. There's the big kind of 2 on the stand, but the construction, it's only metal on the stem. The webcam itself is entirely plastic, including the casing. The base is plastic, and it just feels kind of undesigned, cheap and cheerful. It feels like, when a YouTuber gets a product from AliExpress but does a bulk deal where they can get their logo stuck on a generic product and they say, I've designed a games console, or I've designed a phone case, or no, you haven't. You've taken a product that already exists, you put your logo on it. That's what this feels like. It doesn't feel like a specifically Nintendo branded thing. I don't know. So it's not terrible. If you want it, okay, 55. It's at the very, very top end of what price would be considered acceptable, and it's at the very, very low end of the baseline minimum of the tech inside it, which should be acceptable. So for me, that's not a good balance. It doesn't really matter because I have no plans on using the kind of Discordy game chat style functionality. It doesn't look like it runs well, and that's just not my style of gaming anyway. I prefer kind of multiplayer locally with my friends, or if I want to talk to my friends, I'll just use, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. The Nintendo Switch 2 is not going to be my way for holding Zoom meetings, But let's just quickly jump onto the Piranha Plant webcam. There is a webcam that, for me, is infinitely cooler in conception. That looks, if the official webcam doesn't look like a Nintendo product, this does look like a Nintendo product. It looks like a Piranha Plant, and it's really, really nice. I really want it. It's really cool, just as like a statue of a Piranha Plant to have on the desk, to have next to your TV. Okay, some people are not going to want something that looks like a child's toy, but a lot of us gamers, we like our little collectible statues and things, and I'm definitely included in that. And for me, it's really neat to have a little Piranha Plant. And it functions as the camera, and the mouth opens and closes. So if you want to, for your, privacy, if you want to cover the camera, you can close the mouth, and then the camera can't see you, and then you can open the mouth and the camera can see you. That's really neat. That's really cool. I absolutely love it. How much does it cost? $60. Okay, $60 is very expensive. But it's only $5 more than the generic, boring-looking one. Would I pay $60? Yeah, I'm a lot more likely to pay $60 for something that I actually think is cool and original and displays well. But it's 480p, 30 frames a second. A 480p webcam. The boring one is 1080p, which was already just meh. Wasn't amazing, but meh. 480p. That's a quarter of the resolution. And I believe half the frame rate at 30 FPS as well. 480. You haven't been able to go to the shops and buy a 480p webcam, or you haven't been able to buy a laptop with a 480p webcam built in for years. Minimum of 5 years, probably 10 years. That has been outdated, ancient technology that nobody would accept, that nobody would pay money for, and it was just a few pence more for the manufacturer to upgrade it to the new baseline standard, which was 1080p. 480, I don't understand, unless the company that is manufacturing these Piranha Plant webcams managed to just bulk buy a whole load of 480p tech very, very, very cheaply and cynically throw it in and think no one's going to notice because everyone's just going to buy this because it's cool. The parents are going to buy it for their kids. The kids are going to want the cool looking ones, and the kids aren't going to know the difference between 1080p and 480. It's cynical, and I hate it. To be fair, this isn't Nintendo that's done this. The company is Hori. Hori are a company who usually I have a lot of time for. In the past, I've bought Hori products even way back in the 90s on the Super Nintendo, and they were excellent manufacturers of kind of officially branded licensed third party controllers. Hori is usually a company that I've got a lot of time for. The manufacturing is usually very good, and I'm sure the quality of the little Piranha Plant statue itself is super cool, but the webcam itself, the tech being built into it, 480p, Hori, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. Make a new version that looks like a Piranha Plant and has the 1080p webcam inside it. We'll talk. I might buy it for $60. Or reduce the price down to $25 and I'll buy it just for a novelty, just to have the Piranha Plant to use it as a statue. But at $60 for a 480p webcam in 2025, that's just insane. That's insanity. And even though I really, really want it just because I think it looks cool and I want to put it on the desk, I can't support that. That's crazy. Going more into official Nintendo products and with crazy prices, we've got there's two official cases. And the first official case is $40 for a case for the Switch 2 system to carry around in portable mode. And obviously you can put some games in there, just the loose cards. And it comes with the screen protector. $40. Again, like I said with the webcam, it's at the top end of what I would consider acceptable, but considering Nintendo always charges a premium, that's not a terrible price. But the case, it's fine. It's like a kind of semi-hard, like a soft hard case, if you know what I mean, like the kind of neoprene cases that it's not like a flight case that you can drop things on it and hit things with it and it won't it'll protect it, but it's solid enough that it's not just like a sock that you put your system into. Okay, fine. But let's be real, there's third-party solutions that are going to be available that will basically be identical to this in functionality, that will be available for $10 to $15, no question, or like $5 to $7 on AliExpress. We saw exactly the same with the Nintendo Switch 1, the Nintendo Switch Lite, the OLED. There's unofficial cases that have exactly the same functionality and often, in my opinion, look cooler because you have a bigger choice of designs, bigger choice of colors, and sometimes you can even buy officially licensed ones with different Mario or Zelda or Animal Crossing, whatever art on there, and still they're cheaper than the official Nintendo one. So $40, it's not a crazy price, but honestly, if you go with the third-party solution, even if you want a Nintendo branded, official Nintendo branded third-party solution, you will be able to buy one for $20, half the price. But the screen protector itself, screen protectors are not expensive, even really nice quality tempered glass ones, which come with the accessories for fitting them properly. And sometimes they even come with, 2 or 3, just in case you mess up your first go at attaching them. You can get those for like $5 usually for almost any mobile phone, so I imagine it'll be the same with the Switch 2. It's a larger screen, so maybe like $10, but so $40, okay. If you absolutely need to buy a Switch 2 carry case because you're worried about your child carrying it around, you can't wait, you want to buy it right now, you don't care that it's maybe $20 higher than it should be, okay, fine. Or if you can get like a bundle price all in together, okay. But Nintendo also offers the all-in-one carrying case. And when I first saw this, I saw, it's a more kind of square size. It's a fairly extortionate price, but maybe that means it's going to be like a super high-quality, super strong flight case. It's going to be, kind of metal construction, and it's going to be... No, it's just a soft carry case. It's the reason why it's square is it's a bit larger, so you can carry around the dock. And the charging brick as well as the case. It's $85. $85 for a soft carrying bag, essentially. That is insanity. That is extortion. There is nothing about this that is worth $85. Again, just going back to what it's costing them to manufacture these. There will be third parties that manufacture pretty much identical cases, identical quality with, the same quality material, the same quality zips, and sell them for $20. There's no doubt in my mind. $85. Why would you pay that? But also, why would you need to carry the dock around to somebody else's house or whatever? I don't know. It just, I can't see the use case. I can't see who would want to carry all these things around. And even if you do, say you're going on holiday and you want to take your dock, so you can plug it into the TV while you're there, I suppose, or whatever, $85. That's insane. Just put your Switch and your dock and your charging brick back in the original retail packaging that it came in the cardboard box. And honestly, I think you might have the same level of protection. The same level of protection inside the cardboard box, probably higher level of protection, because that cardboard box has to be stacked and thrown in shipping containers when it's going overseas, and, is going to be stacked in supermarkets and thrown around. There's a lot of protection inside that cardboard box. Will you get the same level of protection inside the material kind of carrying case with a bit of foam? I don't know. It's debatable, and you already have that retail box. Hopefully you held on to it. $85. I just can't believe it. When I look at that price, I just think that's... Have you bought one? Do you know somebody who's bought one? Do you know somebody who's planning on buying one? Leave a comment. I genuinely, I cannot believe... Even if you're a multi-millionaire, I can't see who would want to pay $85 for this specific carrying case. It doesn't make sense to me. And Nintendo, in my opinion, is shooting themselves in the foot by releasing a product at that price because nobody is going to buy it. Nobody's going to buy it. The handful of people that will buy it at that cost is not going to be worth charging that extra cost. If you'd have charged, say, $35, you would sell a bunch of these and you'd make more money overall than the handful who will be willing to pay $85. I can genuinely imagine a situation where literally zero consumers pay $85, and the only people that pay $85 are the collectors who are specifically collecting one of every single official thing to put in storage in case in the future they're worth more money. And maybe in the future they will be worth more money because they'll be so rare because nobody freaking bought one. This isn't investment advice. It's insanity. It's insanity. Now on to something that is a lot more interesting, and I actually, again, I'm more tempted to buy myself I think it's overpriced, but I think it's a high-quality product. The Nintendo Switch Online Gamecube controller. The Switch Online Gamecube controller. Okay, let's talk about the Switch Online controllers. There's been multiple ones already. There's been the NES, the Super NES, the N64. There's a Sega Genesis one as well, I believe. The Sega Genesis one is the only one that I haven't bought, simply because there already existed official Sega Retrobit controllers, and I've got a bunch of them, so I didn't bother buying the Switch Online branded ones. But I assume that they're roughly the same. But with the especially with the Super Nintendo online controller and the N64 online controller, I love them. Unconditionally, I love them. The build quality is excellent. They feel just as good, if not slightly better, than the original ones, and they're beautiful, beautiful. They're perfect for playing the kind of emulated Super Nintendo and N64 games. Now, I don't actually use the emulated systems on Switch Online very much for reasons that I'll get into in another video. But I love playing games emulated on my PC, etc. And these controllers will connect to a PC via, I think it's Bluetooth. On my laptop it just works. And for my main gaming PC, I just bought a little, $5. I think it was Bluetooth adapter, maybe Wi-Fi adapter. I can't remember. Don't quote me on it. But I use that Super Nintendo controller especially all the frickin' time, man. It's great. It's really good, and it feels great in my hands. The only kind of frustration in it is it's got like a little light on it that if you're connected to a PC or whatever, the light is just constantly kind of flashing and spinning around. That's kind of annoying, but it's possible to disable that by opening it up or just putting a little bit of tape on it. But the controller itself, it's beautiful. Feels great in the hand. It's absolutely perfect. I love it. I've had no problems with it. And the Nintendo Gamecube controller, in many people's opinions, mine included, is one of the greatest video game controllers of all time. I believe it's the only Nintendo controller that ever since its release has never been out of production, because they've produced versions of it for people to use to play Smash Brothers and other games that they feel will work well with the controller, but especially Smash Brothers, on every system after the Wii, after the GameCube. The Wii could use GameCube controllers itself. The Wii U had a GameCube controller. The Switch has multiple options for using GameCube style controllers, and often they're available in multiple different colors, multiple different varieties, because Nintendo knows that people love the GameCube controller, and I understand why. It's really comfortable in your hands, even if you've got big hands like me. It's quite a small controller, but it's very ergonomic. It's strange to look at, but very ergonomic. And it's an unusual button layout for sure, with like the A button being enormous and then the other buttons kind of surrounding it in an interesting way. But for Smash Brothers, it is the controller that is used, professionally in esports, and so many people would say it's the best controller for that game. And people take their Smash Brothers very seriously, so people buy the GameCube controllers. I'm not a huge Smash Brothers player, but I do love that controller, and I absolutely love the GameCube games. So love playing GameCube games on emulation. I've modded all my previous Nintendo consoles that will play to play GameCube games, like on the Wii and the Wii U. Or that we would actually play GameCube discs out there at the back, but modified the Wii U to play GameCube games as well. I love me some GameCube games, and obviously, you can play via Dolphin, etc. Nintendo, don't sue me. I own all of these games. I bought them first time around. I'm one of your best consumers. It is a crime that up until now I have felt forced to use emulation to play games that I've paid money for when you could have been re-releasing them yourself. But, okay, Nintendo with the Switch 2 have started to include GameCube games on Switch 2 Online. So finally, I don't have to criticize them for that anymore, as long as they keep releasing new games at a decent rate. And by all accounts, the Switch 2 plays GameCube games pretty well, from what I've heard. It's not something I've fiddled with very much, for reasons I'll get into in another video, but it does mean that we've got this Switch 2 Online GameCube controller, and I'm very, very happy about that. I don't own one right now, but I plan on buying one, and I assume that the quality will be just as good as with the previous Nintendo online Switch Online controllers, and so I'm absolutely chomping at the bit to get one. It costs $65. That's kind of crazy. I'm pretty sure with my Super Nintendo controller, which is the one that I, really have used the most often, I'm pretty sure I only paid like $30 for it, or $35. So $65. I mean, admittedly, Switch Online, the Gamecube is a more complicated controller. It's got an analog stick, and it's also got analog shoulder buttons as well. So that there is more tech than in a Super Nintendo controller, obviously. $65. It's overpriced, but many people are going to buy one, myself included. And although $65 sounds expensive for the Switch 2 GameCube controller, it's nothing compared to $85 for the Switch 2 Pro controller. Arguably two very similar products from a technical standpoint, both controllers with two analog sticks, rumble, etc. But as I keep mentioning, I don't mean to be clickbaiting, but genuinely, I think there's things that people aren't talking about with the Switch 2 Pro controller, and it's not necessarily a controller that you should buy. And the GameCube controller is actually better bang for your buck in many ways. And there's alternatives to the Pro controller, several alternatives to the Pro controller, which I actually think are better value for money, and probably or possibly at least give you a better experience in many ways. And I'm looking at the time, and I planned to cover the Pro controller in this episode as well, because this is a big episode that covers literally every single accessory available at launch. But I'm looking at the time, and we've been talking for a long time, and my potato over computer is going to explode. So I think I should split this into 2 episodes. So if you come back tomorrow, I'm going to talk more about the GameCube controller in more detail as to why I think it's such a great controller and why it's potentially a essential purchase for many, myself included. But we're also going to talk about the Pro controller and alternatives for the Pro controller. And I suppose the only other semi-official accessory which we haven't covered is memory cards. I'm sure most of you already know about memory cards, but if you don't, there are specific Nintendo branded semi-official memory cards, and yeah, they're good quality, but they're overpriced, and you should avoid them like the plague. But if you want a bit more detail on those and what you should consider buying instead, I'll briefly cover that in the next episode as well, so that we can officially say that we have covered absolutely every official Nintendo accessory for the Nintendo Switch 2 on launch day, and a few licensed third-party alternatives that may be better value instead. For now, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you've listened all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. I know this one was a long one, and I know that most people are only going to care about the Joycons and Joycon Drift, but if you've listened all the way to the end, thank you. And as a reward, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I am making a free members area, free members blog on Patreon. Yes, it's Patreon, but you don't have to pay. It's absolutely free. If you want to throw me $1 or whatever to buy me a coffee, thank you. That's amazing. But you don't have to. It's 100% free. And I'm going to be doing giveaways. Tomorrow, I'm going to be going out, and I'm going to be using my own money to buy a whole ton of official Nintendo Gacha toys, because there's a few of them that I want, but obviously I'm going to end up with many, many spares, because that's the nature of Gacha. So as a fun little bonus, if you're a member of the free members area blog, as well as being able to read my thoughts and have a space where we can all chat and we can all talk about Nintendo games and talk about opinions on the episodes, and you can request games for me to review and request things for me to cover in future episodes and subjects to talk about, and let me know what you think about the episodes, if you think that I'm an idiot. But also, if you like these, please come and tell me, because at the moment I'm just talking into the void, and I don't know how many people are going to be enjoying these or how many people are going to be finding it useful. But I hope people like these. I hope people find it interesting. Tell me where you're listening. Come and talk in the free members area. Tell me, are you listening, while you're taking your daily run
Are you listening while you're playing your games? Are you listening while you're cleaning the house? Are you listening in the bus on the way to school? What is it? What is it that you're doing? I want to know. It would be fantastic to hear back. Yeah, and also I think probably once a month I'm going to be doing just a random giveaway of these gacha toys. So if you want little Mario and Yoshi tchotchkes to put on your desk or to attach to your rucksack or whatever, I'm going to be giving some away free just as a bit of fun. So come and join us, and for that and for all the other ways that you can listen and support the show, it's linktree/dailyswitch2. That's linktr.ee/dailyswitch2. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.